The night my own mother called me a burden, something inside me shattered. Her words weren't raised in anger, they were delivered with a chilling calm, like she'd been waiting years to say them. From now on you'll cover your own rent. We can't carry you any longer. You're dead weight. I stood in the living room, suitcase half-zipped, my father sitting silent in his chair, not even looking at me. That silence was the worst betrayal of all. My name is Emily Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just packed the last of my things. The framed photo of us at the beach, my graduation tassel still knotted with pride. A few books I once thought they'd be proud I wrote. And I left. The night air was cold, but it felt warmer than that house ever had. I carried my life in 2 bags, dragging them across cracked pavement under the orange glow of a streetlight. No destination. Just away. For days I floated. A friend's couch. A stranger's spare room rented for cheap. I worked small freelance gigs on my laptop, stretching every dollar like it was my last breath. Then came the text. It was from Dad. 3 words. The rent's due. No hello. No checking if I was okay. Just a demand. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, my chest tightening with disbelief. They had kicked me out, cut me off, labeled me a burden. And now, without me, the house payment crushed them. That's when something inside me shifted. For years, they told me my career was pointless, my dreams were worthless, that I would never survive without them. But in that moment, standing in a tiny rented room with peeling wallpaper, I realized something. They didn't break me. They freed me. I didn't reply to the text. I powered off my phone, and for the first time in my life I felt something close to peace. But peace has a way of sharpening into resolve. And what I was about to do would make them regret every word they ever threw like knives at me. Because if I was truly a burden, then I would become the weight they could never lift again. The next morning I woke up with sunlight pouring through a window streaked with city dust. My laptop sat on the floor beside me, its cracked edge glowing faintly. I opened it like a weapon. 4 years, my pointless career, had been building quietly online. Freelance marketing for small brands, running ad campaigns and ghostwriting copy that went viral. Mom called it playing on the computer. Dad called it fantasy work. But it paid my bills. Barely. Till now. I opened my bank account. $1,287.43. Enough for 2 months' rent in the hole-in-the-wall room I was staying in. Not enough to fight back. Not yet. But I had something better than money. I had skills. And I had rage. That night I sat on the edge of the mattress and mapped out everything. The debts in their names. The accounts they didn't think I knew about. The house they co-signed under my name when I was 20 and too naive to understand. They thought they were clever. They thought I wouldn't notice the unpaid balances stacking under my credit score. But I did. I found the emails Mom accidentally forwarded years ago. The paperwork Dad left on the kitchen counter. They had used my name to secure their second mortgage. And they had called me a burden. My heart pounded. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to make a plan. For days I worked like a ghost. Woke up at dawn, built my own agency website from scratch, pulled old contacts, reached out to past clients. I crafted campaigns so sharp they cut through noise like a blade. My phone buzzed with new contracts. $500 here. $2,000 there. Retainers stacked. Every dollar that landed in my account was another brick in the foundation of my escape. Meanwhile, Dad kept texting. Rent's overdue. We need $1,200 by Friday. Your mother's sick with worry. I didn't answer. Then Mom called. Her voice sugar-sweet like nothing had happened. Emily, honey, just transfer it to the joint account, okay? I held the phone to my ear, staring at the peeling paint on my wall, listening to the woman who'd thrown me out. I hung up without a word. That night, I drafted the email that would turn everything upside down. It wasn't angry. It wasn't loud. It was precise. I told them I knew about the mortgage, the debts, the forged signature. I told them I had spoken to a lawyer. I told them I had options. I hit send. Then I sat back and waited, my heart hammering against my ribs like a drum. The next morning my phone exploded with calls. That unknown numbers. And I smiled. Because for the first time, I wasn't the one panicking. The voicemail from Dad was the first thing I heard that morning. His voice wasn't calm anymore. Cracked. Emily, call me back. We can work this out. Don't do anything stupid. Stupid? They had stolen my name, my credit, my future. And now, the moment I dared to fight back, I was the reckless one? I let the message sit, unplayed again so I could savor the cracks in his voice. By noon Mom called. No honey in her tone this time. Just venom. Do you have any idea what you've done? You're threatening your own family? After everything we've done for you. Everything they'd done for me. I laughed out loud. Alone in my rented room, I laughed until tears burned my eyes. I typed back one line to her text that followed. Everything you've done to me. Then I silenced my phone. Because I didn't need their noise anymore. I needed focus. I filed the paperwork with the lawyer. Dispute forms, fraud reports, notarized statements with my signature beside their forged ones. Every step felt like another blade sliding into the illusion of their perfect suburban life. Meanwhile, my work took off like fire. One client referred another and another. I was sleeping 4 hours a night, eating takeout noodles over my laptop, but I was alive. My bank account climbed past $10,000. Then $20,000. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was winning. And they knew it. One night, my inbox lit up with a long email from Dad. Pages of justification. He said it was a family decision. That I'd benefited from that roof over my head. That it was only fair I carried part of the load. But his words gave him away. Fair. Fair meant they were drowning. Fair meant they couldn't make the mortgage without me. Fair meant their safety net had slipped away when I walked out that door. And now the image of me as a burden was turning on them like a shadow swallowing the light. I saved the email. Every word of it was evidence. But my revenge wasn't about courts or lawsuits anymore. That was the safety net. The real revenge was quieter. Colder. I started posting. Not names, not faces. Just stories. A thread here, an article there. About parents who used their children's credit. About betrayal dressed up as sacrifice. My words spread. Hundreds of comments. Then thousands. People telling me their own stories. People raging with me. People standing on my side. For the first time, my voice wasn't just mine. It was an echo chamber, and it was growing. And I knew Mom and Dad were seeing it. I knew because Mom finally broke. She called one last time, her voice trembling like I'd never heard. Emily, please. You're ruining us. I pressed the phone to my ear, my lips curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. Finally, they were the ones begging. Mom's voice still echoed in my ear long after I hung up. You're ruining us. The words tasted sweet. Not because of the pain behind them, but because they finally admitted the truth. I wasn't their burden. I was their foundation. And without me, their house of lies was collapsing. That weekend I made my move. I had spent nights piecing together every document I could find. Old bank statements, hidden emails, the loan contract with my forged signature. I didn't dump it online. No, I was more surgical than that. I sent it to the people who mattered most in their world. The pastor of their church. Their close friends. Even Dad's boss, the one he always boasted to about his perfect family. Each envelope sealed with proof of what they'd done. Not anonymous. My name printed clearly on every page. If they wanted to call me a burden, then I would be the weight that dragged their reputation straight into the dirt. The fallout was instant. By Monday, Mom was calling nonstop. Her voice wavered between rage and panic, like she couldn't decide whether to scream at me or beg. Do you realize what you've done? People are looking at us differently. Your father, he could lose his job. I sat in my room lit only by my laptop glow and whispered to myself, good. Because I had lost more than a job. I had lost my family, my trust, my safety. And now they would lose the mask they wore so proudly. Online, my anonymous posts kept spreading. One story in particular, about how I was kicked out and told to cover my own rent, exploded. People stitched it, duetted it, shared it like wildfire. The comments were brutal. Strangers called out the cruelty. Some shared screenshots of their own parents doing the same. My story had tapped into something raw and it was unstoppable. I didn't need to name my parents anymore. The internet had already painted them into the villain's corner. And I became the voice for everyone who'd ever been discarded by the people who should have loved them. Meanwhile, the calls from Dad grew more desperate. One night, past midnight, he left a voicemail that was nothing but silence, except for his shaky breathing. It was almost pitiful. But pity is a luxury you can't afford when you've been betrayed. I opened my bank app again. $34,500. My business was thriving. My name, once drowned under their debts, was climbing back into the light. I was rebuilding. Stronger. And as for them? I knew they were sitting in that too-big house, staring at bills they couldn't pay with friends who no longer trusted them, a community whispering behind their backs. They called me a burden. But the truth was clear now. They were the weight. And I had finally let go. The first time I saw their faces crack in public was on a Tuesday evening. Someone had tagged me in a community Facebook group. A grainy photo of my parents at the grocery store. Mom clutching a basket with nothing but bread and milk. Dad staring at the ground like the floor might open and swallow him. The caption read, "Sad to see the Carters struggling after everything came out." I didn't comment. I didn't even like the post. I just stared at the photo until my chest filled with something I hadn't felt in years. Vindication. Because my whole life they strutted through that same town with their chins high, painting me as the failure. I was the one with the silly career, the one who needed rescuing. Now the town saw the truth. They were the frauds. And I was free. But freedom wasn't enough. Not yet. I still had their debt tied to my name. I still had the scars of being thrown away like garbage. And I wasn't finished. That week I took the evidence I'd collected and scheduled a meeting with the bank. I walked into the marble-floored lobby in my best blazer, my hair pulled back sharp, my laptop tucked under my arm. I wasn't the timid girl they once manipulated. I was a businesswoman now. I laid out everything. The forged documents. The proof of fraud. My lawyer's statement. The bank manager's face shifted from polite boredom to pale shock. By the end of the meeting, the fraudulent mortgage was no longer my burden. My name was cleared. My credit restored. And their accounts froze pending investigation. That night, I poured myself a glass of cheap wine in my little apartment and let the silence wrap around me. My phone buzzed again, another call from Mom. I let it ring out. Then another from Dad. Straight to voicemail. But then a text appeared. Just 5 words. "We could lose the house." I read it twice, then a third time. The house. The shrine they worshipped. The 2-story cage where they told me I was worthless. The roof they lorded over my head like a gift, when in reality it was a prison built on lies. And now it was crumbling. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and finished drafting a client's campaign. Every keystroke felt like another nail in their coffin, and another rung on the ladder pulling me higher. Because here's the truth. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the sound of your bank account growing while there's empties. Sometimes it's the image of their faces in that grocery store, stripped of their pride. And sometimes it's as simple as silence. They had demanded rent. They had demanded my obedience. But I owed them nothing. And the next time they reached out, I knew exactly what I was going to say. The next time the phone rang, I answered. Silence. Then my father's voice, hollow and strained. "Emily, we're in trouble." I leaned back in my chair, the city lights flickering through my window. His words didn't sting anymore. They floated past me like smoke. "You should have thought about that," I said evenly, "before you forged my name." He tried to soften it. "We only did what we thought was best for the family. You've always been." "Stop." My voice cut sharp through the line. "Don't you dare call this family. Family doesn't bleed you dry and then kick you out when you've got nothing left to give." For the first time, Dad had no comeback. Just the sound of his uneven breathing, the weight of his silence. Then Mom's voice broke in, high-pitched, desperate. "Emily, please. We could lose everything. The house. The cars. Your father's reputation. I laughed, low and bitter. Everything you stole to keep shiny. You cared more about appearances than me. Well, here's your appearance now, exposed. Her gasp was sharp, like a wound splitting open. You don't understand, Oh, I understand perfectly, I interrupted. You wanted me small. You wanted me dependent so you could keep using me. But you forgot something, Mom. Burdens get dropped. And I dropped you. I hung up. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. That night I walked through the city, the autumn air crisp on my skin. Neon signs buzzed above me, strangers brushed past, and for the first time I felt weightless. I wasn't the girl dragging bags down a dark street anymore. I wasn't the burden. I was free. But freedom has a taste. It makes you hungry. So I sharpened my hunger into strategy. I doubled my client load, reinvested my earnings, and hired 2 freelancers under me. My tiny business grew teeth. Within weeks, I signed my biggest contract yet, $15,000 upfront. More than my parents ever gave me in my life. When the wire hit my account, I smiled. Not because of the money, but because of what it symbolized. I didn't just survive them. I was surpassing them. Meanwhile, the fallout worsened. A neighbor emailed me screenshots from the community page. Whispers about foreclosure, rumors about Dad being under review at work, Mom skipping Sunday service with tears on her cheeks. For years they ruled that neighborhood like royalty. Now they walked it like ghosts. And still the calls kept coming. Still the pleas and the guilt trips. But I knew the end was near. Because when someone who once called you a burden starts begging for your help, that's not family. That's desperation. And desperation was the stage where my revenge would finally be complete. It happened faster than I expected. A neighbor messaged me a photo. A foreclosure notice stapled to the front door of my parents' house. Bright red letters across white paper, screaming louder than any words I'd ever said to them. The house, the shrine of their pride, the cage they kept me in, was no longer theirs. That night Dad called again. His voice sounded older, thinner, like the years had finally caught up to him in weeks. They're taking the house, Emily. Your mother, she hasn't stopped crying. Please, if you just send something, just a little, maybe we can stall it. We can make this right. I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered packing my suitcase under that same roof, Mom's voice cold, Dad's silence cutting deeper than any blade. You're a burden. Now here he was begging. I don't think you understand, I said softly, each word deliberate. This is me making it right. There was silence on the other end. Then the faint sound of him breaking, a muffled sob before the line went dead. For days I didn't hear from them. No calls. No texts. Just the quiet echo of their downfall rippling through the town. Their church turned cold shoulders. Dad's boss replaced him. Mom's friends stopped answering. The Carters, once the picture-perfect family, were now nothing but whispers of betrayal and ruin. Meanwhile, my world bloomed. My agency crossed $75,000 in revenue. I signed a lease on a sunlit apartment downtown with hardwood floors and tall windows that opened to the city skyline. I furnished it piece by piece, each chair, each plant, each lamp chosen carefully, not because I needed them but because I wanted them. Because it was mine. I framed a single photo on my wall, the one I had taken when I first left, dragging my suitcase under the streetlight. Not as a wound but as a reminder. And yet, even in that new space, they haunted me. Not with power but with their weakness. With the endless question of how far a parent will fall when the child they cast aside finally rises. I got my answer one evening in late winter. A knock on my door. Soft, hesitant. When I opened it, my mother stood there. Her eyes were swollen, her hands shaking around a thin manila envelope. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her, as though the collapse of her world had shrunk her body. Emily, she whispered, her voice raw. We have nothing left. Nowhere to go. Please. She held out the envelope. Inside, I knew, were the scraps of whatever they had left. Papers. Please. Maybe even apologies. For a long moment I just stared at her. The woman who raced me on shame, who cut me down, who called me a burden. And in that moment I realized the final act of my revenge wasn't about money or houses or debts. It was about choice. And I finally had one. She stood in my doorway trembling, the envelope shaking in her hands. "Emily," she said again, her voice cracked and paper-thin. "Please. We've lost everything. The house. Your father's job. We don't even have a place to stay tonight." For years I had dreamt of this moment, the day my parents would need me more than I ever needed them. But standing there, staring at my mother's hollow eyes, I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. Because revenge isn't about screaming back at the people who hurt you. It's about holding the mirror steady while they crumble under their own reflection. "Do you remember," I asked quietly, "the night you called me a burden?" Her lips parted but no words came out. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. "You didn't say it in anger," I continued. "You said it like it was fact. Like it was truth. You threw me out with nothing and Dad just sat there silent. And now you're standing here, asking for help." Her eyes filled with tears. "We were wrong. We were selfish. Please, Emily. We're still your parents." I felt the heat of her words against my chest, but I didn't flinch. Parents protect their children. They don't destroy them to save themselves. For a long moment I let the silence hang heavy between us. Then I reached out, not for her hand but for the envelope. I opened it slowly. Inside were letters. Apologies scribbled in shaky handwriting, debt notices, eviction warnings. Proof of their ruin. I set the envelope on the table behind me. Then I stepped back into the doorway, holding her gaze. "I built my life back from nothing," I said. "Not because of you. In spite of you. And I will never let you take that from me again." Her tears spilled over. "So you're really going to let us?" "Yes." My voice was steady, unshaken. "Because you already let me go." I closed the door gently, not with rage, not with cruelty, but with finality. On the other side I heard her sob once, soft and broken. Then footsteps fading down the hall. I stood there for a long time, the weight of years lifting off me like smoke leaving a fire. Then I turned, walked to my window and opened it wide. The city air rushed in, cool and alive. Below, the streets pulsed with people. Strangers, dreamers, survivors. And for the first time I felt like one of them. I wasn't the girl who was thrown away. I wasn't the burden. I was the storm that swept their house clean, the silence that made them face themselves, the proof that you can walk away and still rise higher than they ever imagined. And as I stood there breathing in the night, I whispered the truth out loud, to no one and to everyone at once. They didn't break me. They built me.